Picture this, a barren wasteland stretching as far as the eye can see. No life, no hope, just sand, wind, and silence. Now imagine that same landscape transformed into a thriving green oasis, not in decades, but in just a few years. And the secret weapon? Rabbits. Yes, you heard that right. Over 1 million rabbits are reversing one of humanity's greatest environmental disasters, and the story of how this happened will change everything you thought you knew about fighting climate change. When most of us picture a desert, we see the same thing: golden dunes rolling endlessly toward the horizon, scorching heat, and a landscape so hostile that survival seems almost impossible. It's a place where nature appears to have given up. But what if I told you that in the heart of Inner Mongolia, China, something extraordinary is happening? What if a solution to desertification, one of the world's most pressing environmental crises, came from an unexpected source that most people would never even consider? This is the story of how China weaponized nature itself to fight back against the desert. And at the center of it all, a French rabbit that's rewriting the rules of ecological restoration. To understand just how remarkable this transformation is, we need to go back to the problem itself. For decades, China faced one of the most severe desertification crises on the planet. The numbers alone paint a devastating picture. In the 1990s, official data revealed that China's desertified lands covered approximately 1.714 million square kilometers. To put that in perspective, that's nearly 1/5 of the entire country, an area larger than Mongolia itself. But here's what made it even more terrifying. The desert wasn't just sitting still, it was advancing. Every single year after the turn of the millennium, the desert claimed an additional 10,400 square kilometers of land. That's roughly the size of a small country disappearing under sand annually. By 2015, the situation had escalated dramatically. Desertified land had expanded to 2.62 million square kilometers. A full third of China's territory was now classified as desert or degraded land. Think about what that means for a moment. Farmland vanished. Communities were displaced. Dust storms became so severe they blanketed cities hundreds of miles away, turning the sky orange and making the air toxic to breathe. The economic cost was staggering, but the human cost was even worse. China stood at a crossroads. They could watch their land slowly turn to dust, or they could fight back. But how do you fight an enemy as relentless as the desert? The answer began to take shape in 1988, when one of China's most brilliant scientific minds stepped forward with a radical idea. Qian Xuesen, a scientist whose contributions to Chinese aerospace and technology had already earned him legendary status, turned his attention to the desert crisis. But Qian didn't propose what everyone expected. He didn't call for more tree planting campaigns or traditional conservation efforts. Instead, he challenged the entire approach to desert management. His criticism was sharp and direct. Simply planting trees and building windbreaks wasn't enough. These methods treated the symptoms, not the disease. Qian proposed something revolutionary, an integrated industrial approach. He envisioned combining grasslands, agriculture, and animal husbandry into one interconnected system. The desert wouldn't just be controlled, it would be transformed into a productive ecosystem that could sustain itself economically while healing ecologically. At first, many dismissed this as theoretical idealism, but Chinese entrepreneurs saw something different. They saw opportunity. What happened next was extraordinary. Private investors and business leaders, inspired by Qian's vision, began pouring resources into the forgotten deserts of Inner Mongolia. These weren't small-scale experiments. This was an all-in bet on a new model of environmental restoration. One ambitious project alone attracted investments totaling 750 million yuan. The goal? Establish a massive 300,000-acre base for growing salix, a hardy shrub perfectly adapted to desert conditions. But that was just the beginning. The real vision was to use this foundation to green 3 million acres of surrounding desert land. Salix proved to be a game changer. Its deep roots stabilize sand, its branches provide windbreaks, and it grows rapidly even in harsh conditions. But investors knew that plants alone wouldn't create the self-sustaining ecosystem they envisioned. They needed an animal partner, something that could thrive in the desert while contributing to both ecological restoration and economic viability. The search led them to France, and to a rabbit that would soon become an unlikely environmental hero. The Rex rabbit, known in French as Castor rex, arrived in China with, well, some pretty impressive credentials. Originally bred in France for its luxurious velvety fur, this wasn't your ordinary bunny. These are large, robust animals with specific environmental needs, and paradoxically, those needs made them perfect for the desert. Rex rabbits actually prefer dry, clean environments. Unlike a lot of animals that struggle in arid conditions, these rabbits really thrive when humidity is low. So, the desert, with its dry air and minimal rainfall, became not a challenge, but an ideal habitat. But you know, the real magic happens underground. Rex rabbits are natural excavators. They dig constantly, searching for grass roots and dried vegetation beneath the surface. However, they have this peculiar digestive quirk. They just can't process hard-shelled seeds. This seemingly minor detail ended up being crucial to the ecosystem's success. Here's why. When the rabbits dig for food, they aerate the soil, turning it over and making it softer and more permeable. This simple activity lets water penetrate deeper when rain does fall, and creates way better conditions for plant roots to establish themselves. And those seeds they can't digest? Well, those get scattered and buried in their excavations, perfectly positioned to germinate when conditions are right. Then, there's the fertilizer factor. Rabbit droppings are nutrient-rich organic matter that rapidly enriches desert soil. As the rabbits multiply and spread across the landscape, they basically become mobile fertilizer factories, continuously improving soil quality wherever they roam. The results were almost unbelievable. In areas where Rex rabbits were introduced alongside Salix plantings, the plant survival rate skyrocketed to 96% or higher, far exceeding what traditional desert greening methods could achieve. But perhaps the most important factor here is the Rex rabbit's reproductive capacity. These animals breed at a rate 25 times faster than conventional livestock. A single breeding pair can produce about 40 offspring in a single year. This explosive reproduction rate meant the project could scale rapidly. What started as a controlled experiment soon expanded exponentially. Today, more than 1.2 million Rex rabbits call the Chinese desert home, and that number just keeps growing. As the rabbit population expanded, so did the transformation of the landscape. Areas that had been bare sand for generations began sprouting green shoots. Shrubs took root, grasses spread, and with vegetation came stability. The sand stopped shifting, the soil stopped eroding, and the desert began to recede. But ecological success was only part of the equation. Remember, Chen Shuisen's original vision wasn't just about environmental restoration, it was about creating economic sustainability. The Rex rabbit delivered on both fronts, and honestly, it did so spectacularly. While these animals were busy transforming the ecosystem, they were also creating wealth for local communities. Rex rabbit meat is considered a delicacy, lean, nutritious, and commanding premium prices in markets across China and even beyond. The rabbit fur industry alone became a significant economic driver. Rex rabbit pelts are among the finest in the world, used to produce luxury clothing, coats, and accessories that sell internationally. The Salix plants the rabbits coexist with also have commercial value. They're harvested for biomass energy, used in traditional medicine, and processed for various industrial applications. This created what economists call a virtuous cycle, an integrated supply chain where every component supports the others. The rabbits help the plants grow, The plants feed the rabbits and stabilize the environment. Both generate income that sustains local communities, who in turn invest in expanding and maintaining the system. Local farmers, who once struggled to make ends meet on increasingly degraded land, found their annual incomes climbing dramatically. Current data shows average farmer incomes in these desert reclamation zones reaching approximately $20,000 per year, a life-changing sum in rural China. The visible transformation has been nothing short of miraculous. Multiple oases have emerged across what was once unbroken desert. Satellite imagery from the past 2 decades tells a stunning story of green replacing brown, of life reclaiming what was thought to be permanently lost. The statistics are remarkable. Vegetation coverage in project areas has exploded from less than 3% several decades ago to an astonishing 84.7% today. That's not a marginal improvement. It's a complete ecosystem reversal. Forest and grassland coverage has expanded continuously year after year. The desert isn't just being held at bay, it's actually shrinking, giving ground back to productive land. The international community took notice. The United Nations Environment Program recognized China's desert governance efforts by designating these projects as a global desert ecological economic demonstration zone, essentially holding them up as a model for the world to follow. China hasn't rested on these achievements. As the project matured, new technologies were integrated to make desert management even more effective. Big data analytics now help track vegetation growth, animal populations, and environmental conditions in real time. Drones survey vast areas, identifying spots where intervention is needed and monitoring the health of restored ecosystems. These technologies allow for precision management at a scale that would have been impossible just a decade ago. The Belt and Road Desert Green Economic Innovation Center was established to consolidate research, share best practices, and develop new approaches to desert restoration. This center has become a hub for innovation, attracting scientists and entrepreneurs from around the world who want to learn from China's success. Looking forward, the ambitions are growing. Projections suggest that by 2025, the Rex rabbit population in China's desert regions will exceed 1.8 million animals. That's not just a larger environmental workforce, it's also a more robust economic engine for rural communities. The industrial chain has diversified beyond just rabbit farming. Ecological tourism has emerged as visitors from around the world come to see the desert miracle for themselves. Walking through what was once lifeless sand and now encountering green meadows, thriving wildlife, and bustling farm operations provides a powerful, visceral understanding of what's possible when human ingenuity aligns with natural processes. Cultural initiatives celebrating the transformation have sprung up. Educational programs teach the next generation about sustainable development. Research facilities study the ecosystem to continually refine and improve management techniques. The model has proven so successful that other desertifying regions in China are adopting similar approaches. Beyond China's borders, countries facing their own desert challenges are reaching out, eager to learn if the Rex rabbit solution can work in their contexts. What makes this story so compelling isn't just the environmental success or the economic benefits, it's what it represents for how we think about solving complex global problems. For too long, environmental protection and economic development were seen as competing priorities. You could have one or the other, but not both. China's Desert Transformation Project demolishes that false choice. By thinking systemically, by understanding how natural processes can be harnessed rather than fought against, and by creating economic incentives that align with environmental goals, China has shown that sustainability can be profitable and that restoration can be rapid. The green economy potential that China recognized wasn't just about feel-good environmentalism. It was about understanding that restored ecosystems provide services: water filtration, carbon sequestration, food production, raw materials that have real economic value. When you account for these benefits, investment in restoration isn't a cost. It's one of the highest return investments available. So what can the rest of the world learn from the unlikely partnership between French rabbits and Chinese desert? First, that nature is resilient beyond our imagination. Landscapes we write off as dead zones can come roaring back to life when given the right conditions and the right partners. Second, that the best solutions to complex problems often come from unexpected places. No one would have predicted that rabbits would be key to reversing desertification. But by thinking creatively and remaining open to unconventional approaches, breakthroughs become possible. Third, that speed matters. We often talk about environmental restoration as a multi-generational project, something that will take a century or more. But China's desert transformation happened in years, not decades. When we mobilize resources, apply scientific thinking, and create the right conditions, change can happen faster than we dare to hope. And finally, that solving climate and environmental challenges isn't just good for the planet. It can be transformative for human communities. The farmers of Inner Mongolia didn't sacrifice their livelihoods to save the desert. They improved their lives while healing the land. As we face mounting environmental challenges globally, from deforestation to soil degradation to climate change, the story of China's Rex rabbits offers something we desperately need: proof that solutions exist, that they can work at scale, and that environmental restoration and human prosperity can advance together. The desert is still out there, still threatening to expand if vigilance wanes. But in Inner Mongolia, 1.2 million rabbits are holding the line, digging, breeding, and transforming sand into soil, one burrow at a time. That's not just an environmental success story, it's a blueprint for the future, one where humanity learns to work with nature rather than against it, where the forces of life prove stronger than the forces of destruction, and where even the most damaged landscapes can be brought back from the brink. The question isn't whether we can restore our planet. China's rabbits have already answered that. The question is, will we?